Let's start with a question. Which performance by Leonardo DiCaprio do you value more? The Revenant or The Wolf of Wall Street? If you choose the second option, let me tell you, you are not alone. And the reason why so many people believe that the role of Jordan Belfort is much more recognizable than the one of Hugh Glass would be scenes like this.
For one dinner!
Dad, we're not poor anymore.
Tell them about the sides.
What are these sides? They cure cancer?
The sides did cure cancer. That's the problem. That's why they were expensive.
Anger is the key. Enraged characters and their scenes are much more entertaining and therefore memorable. But there is a man who warns us against that. He is the most important author on the topic of anger. And it's this grey-haired smiling Irishman. His name is Martin McDonagh. First, let's talk about the paradox. We all know that anger is bad. It leads to bad decisions, or worse yet, starts a spiral of violence, which is almost impossible to stop. Unlike a movie, there is no final shootout, so it's better not to bring any guns at all.
Where's your gun? You said don't bring none, so I didn't bring none. Hey, Bonnie, baby. You didn't bring a gun to the final shootout? Bullshit!
Three Billboards characters put it the best.
All this anger, man. Penelope said to me the other day, it just begets greater anger.
Penelope said begets?
Yeah. It begets greater anger.
Unfortunately, people are still captivated by anger and how picturesque it is, even though in every consequence it brings to the table. The challenge of determining where and how to halt anger before it transforms into violence is arguably the central theme of McDonagh's art, besides moral dilemmas, which often interlace with elements of religion, or football, or both.
You weren't really shit, but you weren't all that great either. Like Tottenham.
Martin McDonagh is brilliant with his characters. Each and every single one of them is fun to watch and easily recognizable. And eventually anger is what makes them such.
Is with a fucking receptionist. Number 3, you better fucking be in tomorrow night when I fucking call again, or there'll be fucking hell to pay. I'm fucking telling you, Harry.
It's the emotion that is always present, at least at the back of their minds. But what's more interesting about his characters is that this anger, although it's always there, very rarely, if ever, fully controls them and dictates them what to do. Suddenly, self-management and the moment of reassurance are equally entertaining as the moment of outburst. Harry Waters from In Bruges, played by Ralph Fiennes, is my favorite. He's the key for better understanding of what provokes rage and how it escalates.
Well, of course it's going to be dangerous if it's a matter of fucking honor.
He believes that his anger is righteous.
The bullets that make the head explode?
Dum-dums, yeah.
Would you like some of these dum-dums?
I know I shouldn't. But I will.
The cause for his rage is the violation of the basic principles which, as he believes, are the only reason preventing the world from going wild. And the same is true for almost every other character of McDonagh. Also, Harry's story is a great example of how destructive moral absolutism is, but we're talking anger here, so let's leave that topic for someone else.
Got to stick to your principles.
Now that we are aware of how important anger is to McDonagh's characters, let's finally turn to the video title.
Jesus Christ.
An eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. I believe that wholeheartedly.
An eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. It's a very clear and a simple formula that describes the need for pacifism better than anything else. It dictates the balance in our world. And when this balance is shattered, nothing good, as you might have noticed. Or scientifically or so speaking, we might put ourselves in the position of spinning the spiral of violence. And stopping such a spiral requires an immense moral effort.
Whatever it is you're fighting about.
So, the leaves the whole world blind formula might be the fairest way to warn people against anger. But what if it comes from the sense of justice? Not in the way of Harry Waters and his "you gotta stick to the principles," but in the way of Mildred Hayes from Three Billboards.
That's right. I'm Angela Hayes' mother.
The act of installing these billboards outside her hometown to draw attention to the death of her daughter Angela is Mildred's way to channel her anger. The reason for that is the inaction of the police as she sees it. And we as the audience empathize with her trauma and perfectly understand where the rage comes from. There is a vivid violation of the universal justice. A criminal, a killer especially, must be punished. If not by the state law, then by the worldly law. McDonagh deliberately picks not just a crime, not just a murder, but a horrific one.
That it wasn't enough that she was raped, and it wasn't enough that she died. No, raped while dying. Thank you, Mom.
So we empathize with Mildred's righteous anger even more. Moreover, we truly believe that she's right, that she does good.
I'm gonna crucify the motherfuckers.
Ooh, then those motherfuckers better watch out. Alright?
And it's right here where we fall into the trap of anger-driven revenge. We believe that universal justice is universally good, and good must end up winning, whatever it takes. Martin McDonagh reminds us, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Another important perspective on anger that McDonagh gives us is self-destructing behavior, or autoaggression. What if we don't want to take an eye of another, but channel our anger inwards? Doesn't that solve the problem? Hans from Seven Psychopaths, played by magnificent Christopher Walken, definitely believes that this is an opportunity. He finishes the story of Vietnamese monk psychopath with self-immolation. From his point of view, this form of autoaggression is not necessarily a bad thing. The monk doesn't harm anyone else. It's his and only his choice.
Viet Cong psycho story becomes the final thoughts of a man who chose not the darkness, but the light. The light.
But Hans is not the only McDonagh's character who leans towards autoaggression. Colm from the Banshees of Inisherin takes his own approach of that. In his case, it's neither noble nor innocent. His deep frustration, fear and rage push him to the extreme point where he chooses a radical change, abandon his own friend. Although he is aware that he starts a conflict, he wants to keep it low and non-violent. Anger grows though. Probably Colm believes that by self-harm, he'll be able to contain the destructive nature of anger. After all, the only person who physically affected here is himself. Also, that is a very vivid, yet abusive way to show that the intentions are serious. Unfortunately for him, for Patrick, for the whole island of Inisherin, anger couldn't be contained by such a way. It spills all over and the spiral starts to spin.
Some things there's no moving on from. And I think that's a good thing.
In case of the Vietnamese monk, autoaggression is a form of self-sacrifice for the good. In case of Colm, it's definitely darkness, not the light. We've already learned that the grand obstacle on the way of Hansi's or whoever else's formula is that anger is just too entertaining. But at the very same time, I've already noted that McDonagh's characters are not always driven by it, because they do stop and think and feel. Too late sometimes, like Colm, but still, accepting the problem is the first step on the long path of solving it. I love the final scene of Three Billboards for how honest and vulnerable Mildred and Dixon are.
Are you sure about this?
About killing this guy? Not really. You?
Not really. I guess we can decide along the way.
When I hear that, I already know that the decision has been made, and that's why the film ends right here. They stopped. Unfortunately, to get to this point, they've paid a heavy price. And that's another problem. Even though we've heard this anger begets great anger thousands of times, it seems like we don't really believe it until the harm is done.
Why don't you both put your guns down and go home?
Don't be stupid. This is the shootout.
The scene from In Bruges where a young killer Ray, played by Colin Farrell, murders the priest is the best, striking illustration here.
You murdered someone for money?
Yes, Father. Not out of anger, not out of nothing. For money.
Who did you murder for money, Raymond?
You, Father.
I'm sorry.
Ray clearly doesn't see himself doing anything unacceptable unless he understands that the priest was not the only person he killed. I'd say he didn't need those extra shots, and he'd probably agree afterwards, when it's too late. Now let's turn to our title for the final time. You know, an eye for an eye leaves...
No, it doesn't. There'll be one guy left with one eye. How's the last blind guy gonna take out the eye of the last guy left?
Gandhi was wrong.
Exactly this is the greatest temptation of the humankind, and the greatest sin. We shall always remember that it isn't whether Hans is right or not, but the unbearable cost one has to pay to try it out.
Have you gone feckin' mental?
Not only have I not gone feckin' mental, but I have 10 fingers to prove I've not gone feckin' mental. How many fingers do you have to prove you've not gone feckin' mental?
9 fingers.
And 9 fingers is the epitome of mental.
That's it for today. Thanks a lot. Like, subscribe, and visit my Patreon to find more content. See you next time.